Oh, hello there. Yes, well, 'twas the Friday before Easter Sunday, and nothing was stirring. Not even in a tomb. No, that'll be Sunday, won't it? That'd be cool. Yeah. I am the resurrection and the light. Yeah, whatever happened to that lot? They were, well, the first album was good, I suppose, wasn't it? Classic. Anyway, yes, leaving all that aside, yesterday we did see some brilliant stuff going on in the media. I've just over the last few weeks been mulling this idea about those glorious people that are in charge of us and quite what the mindset is. And this caught my eye yesterday in the Telegraph. Alistair Heath, a man never knowingly writes anything that isn't just simply ideologically pure. So it doesn't really matter what the world is actually doing. He will write about it from a libertarian perspective. So we get this: Trump's epic quest to save the world is going disastrously wrong. The US president is squandering his many victories, no, me neither, with his catastrophic errors on trade in the Ukraine. Yes, indeed. And yeah, I mean, if you really want to sort of do things like persuade the rest of the world that China might be a good, safe place to put your investment money in, it's a good way of going about it. If you want to get the BRICS on side as a block, it's a really good way of doing it. If you want to make sure that the dollar loses its value as the international currency of the world, it's a very good way of doing it. If you want to guarantee that you're going to have left-wing governments to the north and south of you in Mexico and Canada, it's a good way of doing it. The list goes on and on and on. Not that, of course, Alistair Heath or indeed the people in the comments underneath this stuff will actually acknowledge that, because, of course, they're engaged in something battle to save the West, if you like. Just stuff in their own heads, if you like. I think the West will be fine without them. But the whole psychology of these people, and, you know, if you think about it, we've now had about two distinct generations of neocon policies across most of the Western world. Certainly in the UK, certainly in the US. You can think of Thatcher and now the new lot, and you can think of Reagan and now the new lot. And they have led us neatly here. And what these people all have in common, of course, is a grand sense of entitlement and living in an environment whereby they basically aren't ever allowed to fail. So you end up with people who had some ability to them. Yeah, I mean, Thatcher, much as I perhaps didn't like her politics, was undoubtedly a very, very powerful and energetic, if I can put it that way, leader. You kind of knew that she was, broadly speaking, going to do something and it was going to kind of work. Not all the time, obviously, that's the way things work. Same with Reagan, you know, I mean, nobody else could have suggested to the Soviet Union that they lay down their nuclear weapons like Reagan did. Hooray! But we end up with the fag end of those people, right? We end up with their children, metaphorically or otherwise. So we end up with Trump, who has never been allowed to fail. And if he does fail, then, of course, what he does is just ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist or something, because he's always managed, or pretty much throughout his life, managed to avoid any forms of consequences for his actions. And I would argue very much the same thing with, for example, lots and lots of people in British politics. It's predominantly an infection of the Conservative Party. One has only to think about Liz Truss, or indeed an enormous amount of people that have passed through their front bench over the last decade or so, who are bywords for gross incompetent. Always end up in the House of Lords, doesn't really matter. Always end up as elder statespeople who get paid an enormous amount of money to continue being wrong. Yes, of course they do. I mean, it's a sort of public school attitude whereby you can somehow make up for not knowing anything by sheer enthusiasm. After all, it'll carry you through, won't it? Yes, you might not be a brain surgeon, but by God, give him a scalpel and give it a go. Yes, and if it doesn't work out, it's probably the anaesthetist's fault. Absolutely. And of course we can see this very much in this country as well. You know, we have all the Nepo babies in the Labour Party, which is never a very good idea, and those chickens are coming home to roost, and the other parties as well. I mean, probably Reform is a really good one, because their current internal struggle has now reached the court stage, which always amuses me. Yeah, and that that sort of fey middle class value of seeking legal redress because you're wronged. Yeah, these are the people that will suggest to the rest of us that we just aren't working hard enough, need to pull our socks up or grow a pair one way or another. Presumably that's a biological reality thing that they have. Yeah. And yet, of course, when it comes down to it, they are the biggest snowflakes at all, snivelling when things don't go their own way, which is always a particularly, well, pot of a very unpleasant brown stuff of their entire own making. And you can certainly see this in America. Yeah, they will not accept. This administration is going to be here for at least the next 3 years. They won't possibly admit that anything they do has so far been wrong. After all, it's all four-dimensional chess, isn't it? Or is it just merely Snap where they don't know the rules? Make up your own mind about that. I think that even that's slightly more advanced for them. These people won't allow themselves to fail. After all, why should they? You're the poor plebs who will keep on voting for them and keep them in power. Oh, and by the way, you'll need to pay more for the privilege as well. I mean, once we decide to get rid of these people, which we can do, I keep banging on about it here, but it's a checks and balances thing. Yeah, the whole point of democracy, if you read, some proper history about the way that we arrived at the current state of democracy, it was in relation to rapacious capitalism, which was a whole bunch of very rich people who didn't care whether or not we lived or died. And we are now right back there again. And I, for one, don't want to simply have my nose pressed up against the window of the court watching the antics that are going on in the inside. I don't want to do that. Yeah? I'm not a diner until you let me dine, as Malcolm X would have said. Yeah, I think we all basically need to storm the palace, one way or another. Anyway, we will see. We can think about the glories of Western civilization this particular weekend. Except, of course, we know full well that an awful lot of people that be telling us about that won't be going to church themselves, will they? No, not what they do. It's good enough for the rest of us, though. Yeah. Anyway, do have a lovely beginning to the weekend. Do enjoy the weather. Rather players, I think.